You're standing at a crossroads, not the dramatic kind with thunder and lightning, the quiet kind. The kind where you're smiling in a conversation, but inside, something feels smaller than it used to. And the strange part is this: it's not always the obvious toxic person. Sometimes it's the familiar one, the comfortable one, the one you've known so long you can't imagine life without them. But lately, every time you leave them, you feel a little heavier, a little more tired, a little less like yourself. So, here's the question that can change everything. What if the relationship you're protecting is the very thing preventing you from becoming who you're meant to be? Stoicism has a brutal kind of kindness about this. Not cold, not cruel, just clear. And clarity can feel harsh until it sets you free. Today we're going to walk through the signs, not to judge anyone, not to cut people off for internet points, but to help you recognize what's true. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop holding on and make room for your peace, your future, your real life. Now listen closely. This isn't a list you'll hear once and forget. If you're honest, you're going to recognize someone, maybe more than one. And one of these signs might expose a truth you've been avoiding for years. Let's begin with the first one. If this relationship is stopping you from growing, that is not a small problem. It's a warning. Growth is not optional. Not if you want a life you respect. The Stoics didn't chase comfort. They chased character. They believed your life is shaped by what you practice daily. Your thoughts, your habits, your choices. So ask yourself something simple. When you're around this person, do you expand or do you shrink? Do you become more disciplined, more brave, more honest? Or do you become a version of yourself that is quieter, smaller, and easier to control? Some relationships don't attack you directly. They just keep you in place. They keep you reasonable. They keep you realistic. They keep you from trying. And the dangerous part is that it sounds like care. Don't get your hopes up. Be careful. That's not you. You're doing too much. Who do you think you are? It's soft. It's subtle. But it's still a cage. And here's the Stoic question that cuts through the fog. Is this connection helping me move toward virtue, or pulling me toward fear because fear makes people cling? Fear makes people stay loyal to what's familiar, even if it's slowly poisoning them. And if you've been staying out of habit, or guilt, or history, that's not love. That's attachment. There's a difference. Love wants you alive. Attachment wants you available. Now, the second sign is harder to admit because it doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like constant emotional turbulence, trauma, jealousy, passive aggression, endless tension. You know what I mean. You get a message from them and your body reacts before your mind does. Your stomach tightens, your shoulders rise, your breathing changes. That is data. The Stoics were obsessed with one thing: inner stability, not because life is always calm, but because life is often chaotic. They trained the mind like a sword, not to dominate others, to master themselves. And they taught a simple principle: you don't control external events. You control your judgment, your response, your attention. Now here's the twist. Sometimes the relationship is chaotic, not because the other person is bad, but because it pulls out your worst patterns, your jealousy, your anger, your need to be understood at any cost. And it becomes a loop. They trigger you. You react. They react back. And now, the relationship is basically a battlefield with receipts. Stoicism doesn't tell you to pretend you feel nothing. It tells you to stop being ruled by what you feel. So ask yourself, when I'm around them, do I become more reactive? Do I lose my discipline? Do I start performing, proving, defending, competing? If the relationship turns you into someone you don't respect, that matters, because every day you repeat that dynamic, you are training your mind to live there. You are building a home in emotional chaos, and you will start to believe it's normal, but it isn't. The third sign is even more serious: manipulation, control, the feeling that you're not fully free to be yourself. This one can be tricky because manipulation doesn't always look like a villain. Sometimes it looks like concern. I'm just saying this for your own good. Sometimes it looks like love. If you loved me, you wouldn't do that. Sometimes it looks like friendship. After everything I've done for you. And suddenly, you're explaining your choices like you're on trial. You start second-guessing basic things: what you wear, who you talk to, what you want, what you believe. You change your tone. You filter your words. You shrink your dreams, not because you truly want to, but because it's easier than dealing with their reaction. Stoicism is very direct here. If you are not master of yourself, you are not free. And freedom is not just about where you live. Freedom is about whether your soul is yours. A healthy relationship does not demand you abandon yourself to keep the peace. It doesn't punish you for having boundaries. It doesn't make you feel guilty for having a life. So here's the question: do I feel more like a person or a puppet? And if that sounds dramatic, let's make it simpler. Do you feel safe saying no? Do you feel safe changing your mind? Do you feel safe being honest? If not, something is wrong. Now, the fourth sign is one people ignore the longest because it's not explosive, it's draining. You spend time with them and you feel tired. Not, I need a nap tired. I mean, emotionally depleted, like your energy got siphoned, like the conversation was about them again. Their crisis, their drama, their problems, their moods, and when you try to share something real, they redirect, they minimize, they compare, they make it about themselves. At first you excuse it. They're going through a lot, and maybe they are. But here's what Stoicism would ask you. Is this relationship aligned with a life of tranquility? Because tranquility is not laziness. It's not running away from challenges. It's inner steadiness, a calm strength. And if a relationship constantly produces stress, dread, and emotional exhaustion, it is costing you your life. Not all at once, but slowly. And that's how people lose years, not to tragedy, to daily depletion. Now, before we go further, let me say something important. Every relationship has hard seasons. Every person has flaws. Stoicism doesn't tell you to abandon people the moment life gets messy. It tells you to be wise, to see clearly, to act with integrity. So the real test is consistency. Is the drain occasional or constant? Is it repairable or repetitive? Because if you keep having the same argument with different words, that's not a rough patch. That's a pattern. And patterns shape destiny. The fifth sign is lack of respect. This one is non-negotiable. Without respect, nothing good lasts. You can have chemistry. You can have history. You can have deep feelings. But without respect, the relationship becomes a slow erosion. And here's what lack of respect often looks like in real life. They mock what matters to you. They talk over you. They dismiss your feelings. They make jokes at your expense and call you too sensitive. They violate your boundaries, then blame you for having them. They embarrass you in front of others. Or they quietly treat your time like it has no value. They show up late. They cancel, they disappear, then return like nothing happened. Respect is not a grand speech. It's behavior. It's the daily signal of, I see your dignity. The Stoics believed every human being carries inherent worth, including you. So, if you stay in a place where your dignity is treated like a negotiable item, you will slowly start negotiating with yourself. You will start accepting less. And once you accept less long enough, you forget what you deserve. So here's your reality check. If you had full self-respect, would you tolerate this not? Can I survive it? But is this honorable? Because Stoicism is about living in a way you can admire, not just endure. Now, the sixth sign is one of the most dangerous because it feels like hope, illusion. You're not in a relationship with the person. You're in a relationship with their potential, with who they could be, with who they were once, in the beginning, before things changed. And you keep chasing that version. You keep believing the next conversation will fix it. The next apology will mean something. The next promise will be different. But your life is happening now. Stoicism teaches acceptance, not passive surrender, clear-eyed truth. The world as it is, not as you wish it to be. So ask yourself, am I looking at reality or a fantasy? Because fantasies keep people stuck. Fantasies make you overlook red flags. Fantasies make you defend someone who keeps hurting you. And the hardest part, you don't even realize you're doing it. You just call it loyalty. You call it commitment. You call it love. But love without truth becomes self-betrayal. And Stoics never advised self-betrayal. They advised courage. The courage to see what is and to act accordingly. Now, the seventh sign is a deal breaker in a quieter way. The relationship asks you to compromise your values, not in a normal, healthy compromise way. I mean, it pressures you to become someone you don't respect. Maybe it pushes you to lie, to gossip, to be cruel, to cut corners, to betray your conscience. Or it rewards you for being smaller, for being silent, for giving up what matters. At first it's small. You let one thing slide. You ignore one discomfort. You swallow one truth, then another. And over time you wake up and realize you're living in a way that doesn't feel like you. Stoicism is built on virtue, on integrity, on living in alignment with your principles. So, if a relationship requires you to abandon your principles to keep it, that relationship is not worth the price, because you will pay with your soul, and the soul is expensive. Now, the eighth sign is imbalance. Reciprocity is broken. You are always giving, always forgiving, always understanding, always adjusting, and they are always receiving, always excusing, always taking, always not ready. This can happen in friendships, in family ties, in romantic relationships, and it can trap kind people for a long time, because kind people don't want to be selfish. so they become generous past the point of wisdom. Stoicism doesn't teach selfishness. It teaches balance. You can care for others without abandoning yourself. You can be compassionate without becoming a doormat. So ask yourself, if I stopped giving so much, would this relationship still exist? If your absence of effort would collapse the entire connection, then it was never balanced. It was never mutual. It was you carrying something that should have been shared. Now, the ninth sign is heavy. And I'm going to be clear. If there is abuse, physical, emotional, verbal, psychological, the answer is not try harder. The answer is safety. Leave. Seek support. Talk to someone trained. Reach out to people you trust. Stoicism would never tell you to endure abuse as a test. Dignity matters. Self-respect matters. Your life matters. And if you're in something like that, you deserve help, not lectures. Now, the 10th sign is something most people misunderstand. Failed communication. Not we disagree sometimes. I mean, real breakdown. You talk and nothing changes. You explain and they twist it. You set boundaries and they ignore them. You try to repair and they repeat. And you start feeling like you're speaking two different languages. Stoics valued reason. They valued clear speech. They valued honest dialogue, because communication is how humans build reality together. But here's the truth. Communication only works when both people care more about truth than winning. When both people want understanding. When both people have humility. If one person uses communication as a weapon, then every conversation becomes a trap. And at that point, you need to face something uncomfortable. This may not be a misunderstanding. It may be incompatibility, or unwillingness, or a lack of maturity. And no amount of perfect wording can fix unwillingness. Now, let's pause, because you might be thinking, okay, but what do I actually do with this good? That's the real question. Stoicism isn't entertainment, it's practice. So here's a Stoic way forward. Step 1. Stop asking, how do I make them change? Ask what is within my control. Your boundaries, your choices, your attention, your standards, not their behavior, not their mood, not their willingness to understand. Step 2. Get brutally honest. Write it down if you have to. How do you feel after being with them? What patterns repeat? What do you keep excusing? What do you keep hoping will magically improve? Because the moment you see clearly, you become dangerous to manipulation. Step 3. Decide your line, not a dramatic ultimatum, a clear internal line. What am I no longer willing to tolerate? Then step 4, communicate once, calmly, simply, not with a 40-minute speech, a few sentences, a boundary, a request. Then watch what happens, not what they say, what they do. Stoics judged reality by actions, not performances. If you see effort, humility, repair, there may be something worth building. But if you see deflection, blame, mockery, punishment, then you've been given information. And the Stoic move is to accept information, not argue with it. Now here's a gentle twist. Sometimes the person you need to let go of is not them. It's the version of you that keeps trying to earn love through suffering. The version of you that thinks loyalty means self-abandonment. The version of you that confuses anxiety with connection. Because sometimes the relationship is a mirror, and the mirror is showing you a lesson. You can't heal in the place that keeps cutting you. You can't grow in the place that keeps shrinking you. You can't find peace while you keep bargaining with chaos. And I know that's not easy, because you'll think of the good times, the laughs, the memories, the shared history. Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny that. It asks you to hold it correctly. You can be grateful and still walk away. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can honor what was without sacrificing what must be. And if you're wondering whether you're overreacting, here's a final test. Imagine your future self, 5 years from now, healthier, clearer, more steady. Would that version of you keep this relationship exactly as it is, or would they make a change? Sometimes your future self is already trying to speak to you through discomfort, through exhaustion, through that quiet feeling you keep ignoring. So don't ignore it tonight. Not because you need to cut people off, but because you deserve to live a life that feels clean inside. A life where your relationships are bridges, not anchors. And maybe the most stoic thing you can do is this: choose peace, choose integrity, choose the relationships that make you more you, not less. Now here's the open question I want to leave you with. If you finally let go of the tie that's been holding you back, what kind of life would be waiting on the other side, and what kind of person would you become? When you stop dragging a weight you were never meant to carry, adapted and rewritten from your uploaded sample.